It's been a yearly tradition since a few years ago, and this year we are comparing the Black Shark 5 Pro against the ROG Phone 6. Which is better and which one should you get? I also posted this on our YouTube community post, and a lot of you were torn between these two phones. Obviously, there's no phone that is perfect, and I can see why you guys pick one over the other. For me though, the choice I make may surprise you, so get a drink because this video is gonna be rather long and there might also be a few plot twists at the end. Let's start off with the prices of these two phones. The Black Shark 5 Pro starts at 3,699 ringgit, and whereby the ROG Phone 6 starts at 3,599 ringgit, which is slightly lower. The one that we have here is the ROG Phone 6 Pro, which has the same chipset, same battery as the base version ROG Phone 6, but just with a different camera sensor, the main camera I mean. The storage and also the RAM is at the utmost decked out specs available. Between these two phones, the ROG Phone 6 is also using the newer Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset, whereby the Black Shark 5 Pro is still using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 without the Plus. The specs of these two phones are as listed on the screen here, and I won't highlight most of them here because I don't think they are just that relevant. We'll have another video where we talk about what is the best amount of RAM to have on your phone, which is coming soon, so stay subscribed for that. And now for the triggers. When it comes to a quote-unquote gaming phone, the main highlight to me is obviously going to be the triggers. Now, both of these phones have stuck to their own tradition, so the Black Shark 5 Pro has the magnetic pop-up triggers and they are tactile, whereby the ROG Phone 6 still has the air triggers, which are ultrasonic sensors, and they are essentially working the same since the first ever ROG phone. But that's not all. The Black Shark 5 Pro also has the pressure sensitive screens, which we can press either the left or the right half of the screen harder to trigger an input. This is a feature that I absolutely love and I find myself using it frequently. The ROG Phone 6 though has the ability to split the air triggers into two halves, or either to register a swipe and whatnot to trigger different inputs, which I find it to be quite impossible to use because there's just no way to feel the midway point of the air trigger, and it feels like I'm touching something and I just hope that I'm touching it correctly. These two phones also have motion sensing inputs, which you can tilt the phone and whatnot to trigger an input on the screen, and I find this feature to be disorienting, so I just turn them off. Okay, how about the performance of these two phones then? They are both going to be amazing, honestly. If we are to play Genshin Impact at the highest graphical settings and place them side by side, you can see that the performance coming out of this phone is pretty much similar. I can say that in terms of games, you probably won't realize the performance differences. Granted, we did have to turn on X mode on the ROG Phone 6. And we also initially had the suspicion that the Black Shark 5 Pro is rendering the game at a lower resolution and getting a higher FPS number, but from what we can see here, that doesn't seem to be the case because they both look more or less the same. It could have just been the FPS meter, the sampling rate of the FPS meter on the Black Shark 5 Pro is not as frequent as the ROG Phone 6. So we bring in synthetic benchmarks to draw a clear line of separation between these two phones in terms of performance. Obviously, the ROG Phone 6 is gonna perform better with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, but by how much? We've actually compiled a full table of all the data here so we can compare and contrast them easily. Surprisingly, as shown on 3D Mark's Time Spy Extreme Stress Test, these two phones are gonna be real hot. And in terms of efficiency, we have to do some math to calculate the amount of milliamp hour consumed, and to my surprise, the ROG Phone 6 actually consumes way more power, but the heat dissipation mechanism is better, hence it has lower temperature. And I think that is mostly due to how the ROG Phone 6's chipset is positioned at the center of the phone so that heat can spread out on both sides of the phone. But when you're gaming at home, then don't worry because these two phones also support bypass charging. Just connect your phone to its included charger and then you can enable bypass charging feature, and this is important because you don't have to touch your battery when you're playing games, and that means you can get lower temperature and also potentially higher performance out of your chipset. If you're concerned about what charger can be used for bypass charging feature, the Black Shark 5 Pro is tied to its own proprietary 120 watts charger, while the ROG Phone 6 is pretty much flexible and you can use any charger that supports USB PD PPS standards, and it is above 65 watts of power. You can use the included charger or the Ugreen 100 watts GAN charger or anything else that supports that aforementioned USB PD PPS charging standard. And speaking of that, let's also quickly highlight the charging speed of these two phones. They are both using dual cell batteries to achieve faster charging more efficiently, and obviously the Black Shark 5 Pro, it's much faster since it's using a 120 watts charger and has a smaller 4650 mAh battery. If we average out the charging curve and also normalize the battery capacity to each phone, the Black Shark 5 Pro charges at around 238 mAh per minute, and whereby the ROG Phone 6 charges at around 142 mAh per minute. The screen on these two phones also look absolutely fantastic, so no complaints here. We did our typical color accuracy test on these two phones, and in terms of differences, well, there obviously is a difference, but I don't think we can actually see it with our own eyes without putting these two phones side by side. What we can obviously see though is the bigger top and bottom bezels of the ROG Phone 6. That is because ROG still retained front-facing stereo speakers, and some people might get mad about the bezels on this phone, but I think it's for the better. And that leads us to the speakers of these two phones. The Black Shark 5 Pro claims to be the #1 rated phone in the DxOMark audio test, but for me, I personally do prefer the speakers of the ROG Phone 6 instead, because having front-facing stereo speakers set up is much better, especially while gaming, so that my fingers won't accidentally block the speaker grill. Here's a quick test of both speakers so you can get an idea of how they sound. While we're on the subject of audio, here's also a quick highlight because the ROG Phone 6 still has an audio jack at the bottom of the phone, and whereby the Black Shark 5 Pro does not have an audio jack anymore. I think having an audio jack is super important, especially for a gaming phone, because anything wireless is gonna introduce delay, so you're gonna need wired audio. So if you wanna play competitive games like PUBG, COD Mobile, yeah, audio delay is gonna be a huge problem. Black Shark does have a bunch of TWS earbuds available for sale, but I doubt it can overcome or circumvent the audio delay introduced by Bluetooth. ROG, on the other hand, announced that they are going to release the ROG Cetra True Wireless Pro later this year. That pair of TWS earbuds is able to convert between wired and wireless mode, so you can have the best of both worlds. We'll definitely have a video about that earbud, so do subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on that. There's also one more thing to highlight, and that is the accessories. Like its predecessors, the ROG Phone 6 has a slew of official accessories to change the way that we use the phone. For this generation, we have this crazy accessory, the Aeroactive Cooler 6 that comes with a fan, a Peltier cooler, and also 4 more buttons for us to use in games. However, like what we mentioned in our video where we test this cooler isn't exactly ergonomic to use. The Kunai 3 gamepad returns for the third time, as ROG didn't make any changes to it. It is still very functional in terms of what it has to offer, especially for emulators, but it won't work with PCs or Macs because it doesn't support X input. But that is not all. The ROG Phone 6 can also be connected to some other controllers like the Xbox One, PS4 or PS5 controller, and then remap those buttons so we can use it like the Kunai 3 gamepad. And that is a very handy feature if you have the controllers that is supported by the ROG Phone 6. The Black Shark 5 Pro doesn't actually need other accessories to enjoy games like COD Mobile because those pop-up triggers are built into the device and it is also tactile and responsive. Combined with pressure-sensitive screen, the Black Shark 5 Pro technically has a total of 4 triggers to be used, and all of those triggers are built into the phone itself. Of course, since there are literal moving parts on the Black Shark 5 Pro, that also means that it won't be IP rated. The ROG Phone 6 on the other hand has IPX4 rating. Both of these phones can also output display via its USB Type-C port, so that's good. And as for the software, I think both of these phones have their own set of issues. The ROG Phone 6 comes with a pretty clean software that is close to stock Android, but all of the additional software is lumped inside the Armoury Crate app, which I think is just very cluttered now. For the Black Shark 5 Pro, it separates a few things out, like the Performance Manager is in the settings menu, the lighting effect configuration is in its own app, and the Shark Space still houses all of the games like the previous versions of the Black Shark phones. I think that Black Shark really needs to separate itself from MIUI because in case if you missed out, Black Shark's UI is called Joy UI and it is actually based on Xiaomi's MIUI with a few extras slapped on top. And since the Joy UI is based on MIUI, all of the issues of MIUI is also brought along to Joy UI. Like the super annoying app scanner every time I install an app from the Google Play Store, and the annoying 10-second timer whenever I want to enable certain permissions. And in this regard, I think that the ROG Phone 6's near stock Android experience is better. The looks of the phone is also something that I really don't care much about. Both of these phones do have RGB lights, but the ROG Phone 6 has a fancy ROG Vision that is exclusive to the Pro version. And I think it looks pretty cool, but it doesn't add any value to how I actually use the device. Both of these devices do feel good to hold in the hands, and I'm surprised that they are both also using the same type of frosted glass finish at the back for the Pro versions. So, which one should you get? Well, honestly speaking, the core idea is simple. If you want the best and don't mind the bulkiness and the amount of accessories that you have to buy, carry, and constantly attach and detach from the phone, then the ROG Phone 6 is the one to go for. The Kunai 3 gamepad and also the Aeroactive Cooler 6 is just unrivaled in terms of its functionality. Plus, having true front-facing stereo speakers and an audio jack on the ROG Phone 6 is a big deal, and yet this phone also starts at 100 ringgit lower compared to the Black Shark 5 Pro. If you want portability and you want to feel good just to play games on the phone itself, then the Black Shark 5 Pro is the one to go for. Even though the Black Shark 5 Pro doesn't have any additional accessories to change the way that we use the phone, it is fine the way it is because the magnetic triggers are much better than the ROG Phone 6's air triggers, and the physical tactility is just great if you want to play shooter games because you can feel each time you press the button. And also that pressure sensitive screen is a feature that I didn't know that I'm gonna use it so frequently, so yeah, that is also essential to me now. However, the lack of front-facing stereo speakers and also the lack of audio jack is ultimately detrimental to the Black Shark 5 series in general. And now it's time for the plot twist. Since these two phones are not perfect, I want to bring the Black Shark 5 into the equation. The Black Shark 5 is still using the Snapdragon 870 chipset, but it has almost all the features found on the Black Shark 5 Pro, except it doesn't have HDMI output over Type-C, and the price is also a lot lower. However, it still doesn't have an audio jack, which is, yeah, my complaints of the Black Shark 5 Pro still brings over to the Black Shark 5 as well. But I have yet another plot twist. Let's go back one more year further, and it's March of 2021, and I talked about the Black Shark 4. That phone pretty much has better value in comparison, I would say. The reason why I say that is because it has the same Snapdragon 870 chipset as found on the Black Shark 5, but it has an audio jack, and I think it is necessary for all gaming phones. However, the Black Shark 4 doesn't have any pressure sensitive screen, so yeah, if you use that feature, then maybe the Black Shark 4 is not really for you. And that is it for the comparison between these two phones this year. As for who is the winner this time, it's really difficult to say. I do think that the ROG Phone 6 is better thanks to the front-facing stereo speakers and also the audio jack, and the Aeroactive Cooler 6, even though it has a lot of functionality, I think that it's just really uncomfortable to use. The Black Shark 5 and the Black Shark 5 Pro are very close to each other this year. as they both have the same magnetic pop-out triggers and they also have the same pressure-sensitive screen, but the lack of an audio jack is a huge issue when it comes to competitive games. If anyone from Black Shark is watching this video, then I just want to say that the design of the Black Shark 3 Pro was actually perfect. It's unapologetically big and bulky, but that device was perfect for mobile gaming. And so that is all we have to share with you between the comparison of these two phones and the plot twist of the Black Shark 5. So that's it. Which one will you pick? Do leave your comments down in the comment section below. I want to know your choice. So we'll see you there.